Guys, bugging out has often been the theme of those who want to be better prepared for anything that life throws at them. Thankfully, statistically, the odds of actually having to bug out are very, very low. However, if you ever do, you want to make sure that you have the right mindset, the right skill set, and the right tool set to be able to have the highest potential of survivability. Today, we're going to look at the gear that has been torture tested and tried throughout years of being able to help provide survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training in the U.S. Air Force. Stuff that I've actually taken out in the field, tested through multiple biomes, environments, conditions, time and time again. This is the stuff that I keep coming back through. So we're going to look at the specific gear, but also we're going to look at the methodologies and the principles of setting up the gear perfect for your specific situation. That said, let's get into it. Guys, whenever it comes to the actual bag itself, Everly Stock Low Drag 2, something that I've worked with for many years. And just so you know, there's none of this gear that we're going to go over today that I have any sponsorship with. So all these things I've independently gotten. Some of it has been issued by the U.S. military, but all of it I've actually gone through the rigors, and I personally recommend it based off of my experience. The Everly Stock Low Drag 2 is a smaller bag that has one of the standard Everly Stock traits that I really like, where it has your actual rifle scabbard in line with your pack, so that if you are running a rifle, it's not going to be on one side or the other. It can be center line, which is really helpful over long treks. The other thing I just want to bring a note here is that it is not an overly large size ruck. This is actually small enough that you're going to have to think critically on what you actually need to pack. Because if you give a man a pack, he's going to fill it, right? So we want to make sure that we do not have something large enough to fit in the kitchen sink. This is definitely large enough to be able to fit everything that we're going to talk about today. However, it's not too large where you have the temptation to pack in all those extra things last minute. So this is one reason why I like this size of a pack for the things that we're about to talk about today, actually bugging out. After our bag, I want to make sure that everything is looked at through the lens of your 5 basic needs. So you have your communications, you have health, personal protection, sustenance, and travel. If we look at all of our gear through those needs and we make sure that we have what is necessary, there's a couple of subdivisions we're going to look at with each category, but we want to make sure that each box is actually checked and we have what's adequate for our personal situation, our environment, and the conditions that we're trying to survive in. So let's go ahead and look at communications first. We have electronic communications and non-electronic. So for electronic communications, a cell phone with a rugged case around it to be able to keep it somewhat waterproofed, also drop proof and dust proof, is very, very helpful. Not only are there a lot of places inside the US that will have sufficient cell coverage whenever you get up on top of a peak, whatnot, that can still be used with standard cell coverage. Also, keep in mind that as we go further and further, we're going to have more capability to actually use satellite communications with our phones. And that requires even less coverage and less visibility and more optimization through just your standard cell phone. But as a secondary, I'll actually carry a Garmin InReach. This is the mini version, and why I carry it as electronic means is because it has the ability to do text and email over satellite comlink. So it also has SOS buttons, so I can put in my information in there, and whenever I actually trigger this off of an active subscription, then search and rescue is going to be alerted that I need help, and they're going to start communicating with me and try and recover me from this position. So it is, yes, it is a GPS unit and you can navigate with it. You can also get weather reports, a lot of different functionality, but primarily I have as a backup for satellite text and email inside my electronic communications. Another thing that can be extremely helpful is having a quality radio, something that is HF, VHF bands that you'll be able to, with a ham license, be able to reach out to people. And if you're an emergency, you don't need to have a ham license. I'm sure I'm going to catch some flack for that. But having an extended antenna is going to be something that is potentially very helpful to be able to get that better signal out, as well as backup batteries. Also, do you have everything to be able to program that radio with backup frequencies on a laminated card? If you don't, maybe some things to think about. Whenever it comes to powering my electronic devices, I like to carry a battery bank to extend the life of them, especially in inclement weather. Whenever the temperatures drop, you have your batteries are susceptible to cold soaking, so you want to keep them inside your layers. You want to keep them warm, but just through use and repetition, they're eventually going to drain. So having something that I can restock the power, and then from this, not only does it have a solar panel, which I don't put much stock into. Honestly, guys, I haven't been able to find a solar panel that I'm comfortable carrying that's actually going to give enough juice to my electronics in short order. Haven't yet. If it's out there, I'd love to keep trying them. But also the thing to think about is, depending on the weather conditions, maybe you don't have enough direct sunlight to actually power something up. Whereas this, even if it's completely dead, within 15 minutes, cranking on this, I can actually restock my battery bank and then supply the power to all my electronic communication needs. If you do not have rechargeable batteries for electronics, whatever that is, could be a headlamp, could be a GPS unit, whatever it is, EBL makes these, so you can swap out your double and triple A's with something that can be recharged off of a micro USB port. So that's a good pro tip. Anything that does not have a rechargeable battery, you can go ahead and keep charged with some of those from EBL. All right, guys, whenever it comes to your non-electronic communications, I highly recommend a good signal mirror. So something like this has actually been tested to be able to catch your reflection out to, under ideal situations, 100 miles, which is really impressive for something that is small, compact, and does not take batteries. So whenever the sun's out, this is a really good signaling device, as well as for daytime. Having smoke like this MK8 is a really good option. Up to 5 minutes of brightly colored smoke. Usually they're made for the Coast Guard. You can find these after their expiration date, still working for very, very cheap. During the nighttime, however, it's a really good idea to have something like your MK8 handheld flare. So very, very bright. Also, it's already encased in plastic, so it is weatherproofed as well. Unlike your standard road flare, which is a little bit larger and will burn for maybe 4 times as long, but it is not quite as bright or as hot. The thing with this, though, is that you want to make sure that it is ready for you under those situations, even in adverse conditions. So having it weatherproofed by wrapping it in duct tape, 100-mile-an-hour tape, is a really good idea if you decide to carry something like that. Another thing during nighttime comms is having a chem stick. Now, obviously, guys, these do come in IR if you need to have covert communications, but either the 8-hour, 12-hour comes in different colors, and you can attach either a boot lace or a little section of 550 cord. Use it as a circle signal for either land forces or aerial assets. Something like this can also be a multiplier, equipping you with having a lot of options in your non-electronic communications for emergency, as well as your electronics. So kind of wraps up the communications aspect. Let's move on to health. So for our health, we're looking at, under long term, you want to make sure that you have good mental health. And that is supplied here as having a New Testament, Psalms, Proverbs. This is small, it's compact, it's lightweight, and can help get you in the right mind space. I like to read about David whenever he's running away from a bunch of enemies and having to be out there, the OG seer dude. Whenever I'm in the field, that's a favorite topic of mine. Of course, it's not waterproof, so it goes into a plastic bag. Another thing to think about is, over the long term, if you do not have good hygiene, then it's going to be very difficult to maintain your health. So for that purpose, we have here some Dude wipes, some Mountain Money toilet paper, some Purell, which, by the way, if you guys didn't know, you can add this very high in alcohol content with your toilet paper, and you have a good tinder for your fires. I'll have some liquid IV as well, something to help keep me hydrated, and then some toothpaste and a compact travel toothbrush. All in all, it's a small, compact kit, and it just helps me maintain my hygiene out in the field. Whenever it comes to your standard health, what most people think about, though, you want to make sure that you have something, yes, for massive hemorrhage, but also for treating a lot of those things like, sprains and breaks and dislocations. So adding a SAM splint to your standard blowout kit is a really good idea. Help conform, help you if you do have some of those injuries. But besides that, if you take a quick sweeping view here, you have tourniquet is a really good idea, if not multiple. This is a 4-inch Israeli pressure dressing. Also, if you don't have Quick Clot, another alternative is Celox Rapid, and this is usually infused into gauze that you can stuff into wounds and stop arterial bleeding. Super important to have. If you do have any kind of puncture inside of your chest cavity, this is where a chest seal made by Rhino Rescue or Halo or a number of good companies there, and that just helps with anything in that area. Having 1 or 2 of these, depending on even puncture wounds happen out in the woods, guys, even if you're not thinking about stopping bleeds from gunshots specifically. We've got some other things here. I like to have a little patient assessment system, just helps me run through things if I'm taking care of somebody. Also have a Knowles Wilderness First Aid, kind of refresh my memory on some of the things, along with emergency blanket here, just to be able to help keep patients under shock, loss of blood. It's going to happen. So keeping that body core at 98.6, super helpful there. Also having a boo-boo kit, some second skin or mole skin or something to be able to help with blisters and just things preventative. This honestly gets used more often than a lot of the more standard trauma equipment. So having both and are really good ideas. Last note with medical stuff, guys, make sure that you have the training that you can actually use your equipment well. So just having it in your bag does not mean that you actually know how to use it or use it well. So I highly recommend bring the things that you should have, but make sure you have that training in reserve. Even if you don't have it or you run out of your supplies, how can you actually augment, how can you supplement or accommodate your needs in the field with the gear that you have? So that kind of wraps up the medical portion. Now we're going to move on to personal protection. So there's a couple of different aspects to that. Whenever we're thinking about personal protection from the environment, we want to make sure that we have good clothing to support ourselves. We want to make sure we have a good shelter system, also the ability to make fire. So whenever it comes to clothing, and honestly, guys, this is a really 30,000 foot perspective. We could do a video series on any of these topics, but it is absolutely going to pertain to your environmental conditions, the time of year that you're going to have to potentially be bugging out. You want to make sure that you have layers appropriate for your environment. So for the top environment, what I have here right now is an Outdoor Research Gore-Tex jacket. It's lightweight, it's very packable, but it is absolutely waterproof and it also breathes. So Gore-Tex as an outer layer is always a really good idea in a wet environment. Below that, I have a Beyond Puffy that is reversible. So if I need to have one layer or the other outside, I can do that. But Beyond makes really good stuff. And if you see their price tags, you're like, no joke, they need to. Beyond was issued in the military. So there are definitely more economical options available to you. But having a Puffy is a really awesome idea whenever you're out there adding to your sleep system or whatever it may be. Something in terms of pants that I wanted to mention here are these pants made by Beyond. And again, no sponsorship here. I just really love rocking these pants because they are very water resistant, wind resistant, and very lightweight and breathable and flexible. And yet they're held up and they've been really, really tough. So with everything, guys, I'm going to have links in the description below. So go ahead and check that out. But I highly recommend having something that is going to be scaled up or scaled down for not only the conditions, but also the temperatures, right? So we also have a waffle top here, and these guys are just incredible for being able to maintain that 98.6. They make smaller layers as well as thicker to be able to have scale up or wear both in concert if it's even colder. And then also having a base layer for under your pants as well. Merino wool is probably the best in terms of being able to be antimicrobial. Also, it's going to wick away that sweat. Also, it's just super comfortable to actually be in 24/7. And that's one reason why I recommend Darn Tough socks, because they're made out of merino wool and they also have lifetime warranty. So I'll even wear wool socks in the summer. So they do have summer weights versus winter weights, and something to be advised of. So good quality socks. When it comes to boots, guys, definitely you want to take care of your feet. And in these conditions that we're in right now, as it's turning into winter, we don't have too much snow yet. I want to make sure that I have something that's insulated, I've run a lot of great boots throughout the years. These are just some stand-ins that I have obviously worn through quite a bit. Some Solomons that are insulated, and honestly, I've liked rocking Solomons for a lot of my military career. Really, really comfortable, but also having that extra waterproof and insulation is just huge multiplier there. So in terms of clothing, just a quick overview. In terms of our sleep system, moving on to that now, and these are the things that I'll actively carry, but I have a couple other honorable mentions I want to bring up for you guys' consideration. But whenever it comes to your sleep system, you want to make sure that you have something to sleep in, something to sleep on, something to sleep under, and some cordage to tie it all together. Whenever it comes to cordage, this is survival cordage, so it actually has your standard 550 working load, but it also has 3 extra strands. You can start to see a little bit of the strands poking out there, but there will be an extra wire. There will also be a monofilament line for fishing, and then there will also be another one that is actually tinder that you can pull out of your cordage and use to start your fire. So survival cordage, just a little bit of an upgrade above your standard 550. And then what I'll have is I'll have something to sleep on, which is, for me, this Climate is a mattress that you can actually blow up just with without any tools, and it takes very little time. It's fairly compact. It's about 1.5 pounds, and I've had it really hold up. Even though it's just an air mattress, it's held up for me under a lot of different conditions. It's actually fairly tough, but I will try to have it protected as much as possible. The downside of having something that is just a air mattress is that if you do get a puncture in it, it's going to be fairly difficult to actually solve that problem in the woods. So closed cell foam is actually a really good alternative. It's cheaper, it's lighter weight, and it's almost indestructible. So you can use it for a lot of different things. But if you compare and contrast, this is 1/3 of the weight of this, and it's twice the size. So it's kind of pick your poison. What do you prefer? They also make hybrids where they have like open cell foam inside of an air mattress. So you can blow it up, and you have both worlds, but it's a little bit heavier. So I'm not a huge advocate of that. Something to sleep in. I want to make sure that I am protected from the elements first and foremost. And so whenever it comes to a cover bag that goes around your sleep system, the Snugpak SF Bivy is, again, it's Gore-Tex, so it's breathable, but it's also waterproof. And this is the lightest weight, most compact option I've found. I love it. I'm never going back. Something that goes inside of that is this Seat to Summit Thermalite Reactor. This guy is very warm for the size, fairly compact, very soft. It's also brightly colored orange, so if I need to use it in an emergency as a signal panel to try to wave somebody down, I have that capability as well. So again, multi-use. So these will both go with this, and if it's going to be much colder weather, then I want to upscale my sleep system, make sure that I have something that is rated for the temperatures that I'm going to be going into. As far as something to sleep under, that is why I have this, which is a tarp, and it is basically an industrial survival blanket. It is very, very stout. It also reflects the heat very well. So you can use it in a lot of different multi-use cases, but because it has these grommets and the cordage, you can string it up and use it as a immediate action shelter in short order. So it's very lightweight. Again, multi-use. Another thing that you could use in that category, something to sleep under, is a military poncho. So this one is folded up, and you can see already the hood is tied into a knot, so you don't have that drain into the middle of your shelter in the middle of the night. So you can actually make this into similar size, about 5 by 7, as your tarp. So you can carry one, you can carry both. But this is another great use item because you can actually have this covering over yourself. If you don't want to have an extra jacket, it can also cover over your pack. So I've also rocked a military poncho for years, and this has worked very, very well. Something I've been trying out, I've been going over to more recently, is the Sill Tarp by Rab. So extremely lightweight. very durable material. And it is another option to consider. It's a small tarp. It doesn't have the reflective capability of the survival blanket. And it doesn't have the hole in the top as the military poncho, but as a standalone emergency shelter, this guy is crushing it for the weight and the size. So made by Rab, it's their sill tarp. Really, really enjoy this product. So I kind of interchange and work with different products as I'm trying out different things. But as a system, something to sleep in, something to sleep on, something to sleep under is very, very effective. And then what I'll have is I'll have a dry bag. This is made by Seat to Summit. I can compress down and make it as small as I possibly can to eat up the least amount of space in my pack, but make sure that everything that goes into it, all of my clothing and my sleep system, will be inside of that, so it's waterproofed as well. Something to think about. Speaking of water, we want to make sure that we have our sustenance covered. So that's next on the list. Sustenance is both water and food. Water being the first priority. So whenever it comes to water, we want to make sure that we have the ability to carry it. Also, we want to make sure we can disinfect it. So my favorite means of disinfection is this Grail. So this Grail is actually a really neat system where I can come up to any open water source, scoop this cup into it, and then because this filter here, and it takes out not only your viruses but also your bacteria, you can actually go through, they say, up to 50 gallons off of each filter, and almost that fast you'll have a half a quart of purified water now. So I can use this to fill up my other containers, like an Nalgene. So some kind of tough water bottle I can stuff in my sack. There's just so many different use cases for all of this equipment, but the Grail, I did want to mention, has another version where instead of a plastic outer core, you can get a titanium, and then you'll have a little lid on top of that as well. So you have a single steel wall, and you can boil that water as another means of purification. Also have small tabs of iodine tablets as a third means of water purification. So all in all, this is my favorite, but there are two other methods as well. If you don't have the titanium version, it's not a bad idea to have a single steel wall standalone cup. This one's made by Pathfinder. And essentially, it's a great thing to be able to not only boil water in, but also create soups or have my coffee in the morning, whatever it is. This is an invaluable piece of kit whenever it comes to both food and water. And if I need to, I can do all my cooking and drinking out of this one container, which means that I don't have to have anything else. So besides that, I want to make sure that I have water on the go without actually taking my pack off. So Camelback is probably the best in the industry for your water bladders. Has this tube so you can continue to drink water while you're traveling. If you are in those cold climates where you have the possibility of your hose freezing, just make sure you blow that water back so that you don't have a usable container now. And so as far as water, that's pretty much what I'll carry. And then you can size that up or down depending on how prolific water sources are in your area, or if you're going through the desert and you need to size that water up. Something else to consider is the ability to actually start fires and cook your food. I'm actually leaving out food from this particular video because that is going to be completely dependent on you, your preferences, and we'll talk about some other things at the end of the video. But we do want to make sure that we have the ability to start and maintain fires. So one of the easiest ways to actually cook with this kit is with a little BRS stove, which is probably one of the smallest on the markets, really lightweight. And this just basically screws in the top of this isobutane fuel source. So you can get larger cells as well, but this is just a small, compact way to be able to cook reliably in the field. Together with my single steel wall, I can have water boiling in under 2 minutes. And then to be able to light fires, having something that is actually a windproof lighter, to me, that is my favorite in a lot of different conditions. So it's just fast, it's effective. As far as having good tinder sources, this is cotton balls with Vaseline. And I've tested so many different products out there, literally dozens of them. This one, cheapest of them all, and outperforms every last one of them. So the size and weight, also your Vaseline can help take care of your tools as a wet lubricant if you need that. It's really hard for me to get away from having at least 3 good options in all necessary fields, which is one reason why, even though I have a lighter, yeah, that could go out. I could have it could drop in a lake, whatever the case may be. So having something like this that is a ferrocerium rod to be able to send those sparks, and this is definitely larger than most in the industry. This is a pretty large one, but I can send sparks at 800 degrees plus Fahrenheit. And then the magnesium burns up to 5,000 degrees. H2O is actually an accelerant for that. So although this does not spark, I can put all these small flakes into my tinder bundle and then ignite it with the ferrocerium rod. Also, this handle is infused with oils. So it is kind of a type of fat wood, so I can actually scrape off, as you can see, I've scraped off a little bit here to be able to ignite a fire just with the handle itself. So all in all, it's a great system to be able to have all 3 of those different components tied into one, and this is definitely a large lighter. Some of the equipment that kind of helps you to be able to not only collect but also process that firewood, as well as build different natural shelters or different bushcraft things. Some of the tools we're going to look at next. So multi-tool is definitely a big plus for a lot of different situations. This is the Leatherman Signal. So a couple of differences with this one is that it has a small ferrocerium rod right here built into it, as well as a whistle. So you have another communications method. And on the other side, you have a diamond file to be able to maintain your tools a little bit better. But there's so many different uses for having a small secondary knife and wire cutters and needle nose that I just never leave the house without it. This one is their survival edition, so it's pretty decent. Something that I've been working with more frequently is this Outdoor Elements Scout Feather. And this is a really small knife that also can glow in the dark, also has a whistle, has a flat 90-degree grind here. So you can use the attached ferrocerium rod to be able to cast sparks, and it even has a little sharpener built into it. So all in all, kind of a nifty little package as a backup knife and a backup ferrocerium rod. So again, good things. As far as my primary knife, I really like the tracker design. This one is constructed by a friend of mine, Lucas Olson Custom Knives. So he built this and just have this on my belt. So most of these things here I actually carry on my person, not in my pack. But because it has this unique design, it's really, really helpful for a lot of bushcraft uses. Far too many to go into right now. All right. And then some other things that can help with bushcraft, from wood collection to shelter construction, etc., is a good axe. Now, something I'll say about this Hallsbrook axe is they're made in Sweden. They're definitely some of the best in the industry, but I will not always carry an axe. It's definitely something extra that you could potentially leave behind, but whenever you're actually doing quite a bit of bushcrafting and you have the skills to back it, it's definitely a force multiplier. So I will carry it on some of the trips. Something that could be a little bit of a change up is this Sustenance shovel from Cold Steel. So this guy, having a shovel can definitely be a huge help, but this is actually ground to a bit of an edge here, so you can use it for chopping and cutting things as well if you need to. This is the shorter version. They make a longer one, but I like the short guy personally whenever I'm attaching it or carrying it to my my pack. And then this Zubat from Silky saws. I've definitely broken enough, my fair share of hand saws. And these Silkies are actually built not only extremely good at cutting, but they're built so that they cut on the draw rather than the push. And so you have a much less tendency of breaking these a little bit more flimsy blades. So this one is definitely a workhorse, and you can cut down trees that are much bigger than most hand saws will allow. So this guy is, I actually carry him on my leg with the attached Kydex holster. Works out great. And then I'll also stock some leather gloves anytime I'm working with some of these larger tools, kind of help keep my hands from getting more scarred than they are. And then something else, quick mention here, is having a small micro survival kit. These are backups, right? So having a third line of gear that you can use as either having, again, it has a whistle, has a small blade on it, has a way to be able to cast sparks, button compass, has a mirror. There's a lot of different things in here that are really, really helpful in a pinch, in emergency. So this is one kit that I have tested that's pretty decent. Survive Outdoors Longer makes their micro survival kits. As an aside, guys, you can make your own. It's kind of a fun project to put your own micro survival kit items inside of an Altoids tin or a small compact. Some people put them inside of their Nalgene bottles or things like that. So these are something that you can play around with and put in some extra cordage, maybe a needle, maybe a small blade, some different things to help you in a pinch. But it's definitely some extra gear that can kind of help you be able to accomplish your mission. Which brings us to navigation. Whenever it comes to navigation, you want to think about vehicle-borne, which is anything from your vehicle, could be a side-by-side, could be a bicycle, could be a constructed waterborne craft, maybe a improvised raft. However you can be able to navigate through your terrain the easiest. Try to make it easy on yourself. Try to think outside the box. But usually it's going to break down to a bit of foot mobile, which is where you want to have the equipment to be able to understand exactly where you're at, where you're wanting to go, and the best route to get there. So to make that easy, you want to have some kind of GPS unit whenever feasible. So we have an app on the phone, that's first and foremost. Then we have the Garmin InReach, that's a backup. Tertiary for GPS is actually this Tactical Instinct from Garmin. So again, I can get real-time GPS location through this watch as well. So that's a handy tertiary. One note is that it does take its own unique charging cable, and then you can get an aftermarket silicone to kind of fill up this gap so that your ports don't get gunked up in the wild. So I recommend that. And then whenever it comes to compass, guys, go ahead and rock whatever you're comfortable with. Since I was learned the skills primarily in the military, Kaminga makes a really good model, and as military issue, you want to look for the ones that have the tritium infusion, so it actually does glow in the dark at night for your night navigation as much as possible. Speaking of navigating at night, you want to make sure that you have some kind of a headlamp so you can have hands-free illumination while you're on the trail. So I recommend something that is going to last a long time and is going to be bright enough for you to be able to see as you're navigating. Something that helps me keep track of my paces, which is really helpful for knowing known distances between points and making sure you're on the right track, is something like this, which is your pace counter. And so you can buy these or manufacture them yourself. Then I've got a wide range of different utility items. Everything from printed out CalTopo maps, which you can have on both sides and laminate it yourself. Guys, you can print these out for free online. CalTopo, make it to the scale that you want, put the features on there. You can have two different areas, or you can put different features in the same area on your map. Whenever you are, it's not a bad idea to have something like this, so you can actually have a protractor to be able to navigate off of. It depends on what kind of techniques you guys like to use for your navigation. I'll use it in mine. And then I also like to have something right in the rain, as well as just standard pencil, a grease pen, and a Sharpie. I'll also have a needle in my kit. Just some different things to think about, some quick reference guides, whatever is going to help you to be able to navigate effectively from point A to point B. And speaking of which, having a map besides this printed out one can be very helpful. This one is made by Rugged Maps. So Rugged Maps is a really, really tough material that you can have high quality maps printed on of your area, and you can have the specifications. Again, just something that I've come across that's really helpful, especially in a survival situation. Having something that is just built tough and waterproof can be a real asset, besides having a quality map. So as far as navigation, guys, it kind of wraps up that part, but something that's helped me to kind of keep all my gear together is having some kind of chest rig. So definitely not a must, but something that's helped me to kind of keep the stuff on my person a little bit more organized, besides the pockets, is actually having some kind of a chest rig like this. All right, guys, two more things we want to mention on the back end here. First one is food. This is some survival rations, really compact, small package for 3,600 calories. Something to think about throwing into your bag, but really, how much food should you have in your bug out bag? It's going to be totally dependent upon how far do you most likely need to travel. You want to think about these things in the most likely contingency as well as the worst case contingency, and try to prepare for both of them as much as you can. Now, before each trip, whenever I take my bag on, whether it's a 3-day hike, 7-day trip, whatever we're doing, I got to kind of look at, are there going to be resupply stops in between? How far am I planning on traveling? How much weight extra am I willing to carry for food? What kind of foods will I try to pack for that particular trip? Having something stocked in your bag is not a bad idea, but try to think about how long and how far and how difficult it's going to be and how much extra weight you may or may not have to carry to try to dictate what kind of food you should put in your bag for that most likely outcome. So this is one option, but of course, food options are as varied as your preferences. I like to have things that are lightweight as much as possible, but take minimum preparation. If I can put them in, have something dehydrated and just add hot water, that's usually good enough. But also having something to be able to keep me going while I'm on the trail takes zero preparation, like cashews or jerky or trail mix. Something like that is usually a really good option. So I like to have a little bit of both, but at the end of the day, you do you, boo, and just recommend that you carry enough for what you're going to need in a worst case scenario. Also, try to think about resupply. Can you set up caches in route? Can you also procure things in the field? How good is your foraging skills? So it's going to be a little bit of a difference between if you are completely relying on only the things in your pack versus are you able to resupply or gather things en route. The other aspect to think about is your personal protection versus adversaries. So if you're thinking about protecting yourself while you're on the move, what does that look like for you? Could it just be your everyday concealed carry? Could it be a weapon upgrade from that? Or is it going to be full ghillie suit, sniper rifle, or whatever your best setup is? It's going to be, again, very dependent upon you and the kind of adversaries that you think you may be running up on. So I just want to throw that in there. Everything that we've looked at so far, the dry weight, without adding the food, without adding the water, we're coming in at about 30 pounds with the pack, with all the gear that I've just showed you. So think about how much extra weight are you willing to pack on? How much extra ammo do you want to have? What kind of capabilities do you want to carry with you? And that's going to be totally situational dependent on the adversaries and the conditions that you believe you're going to find yourself in. As an aside, couple extra things out there. You just want to look through the lens of your 5 basic needs and try to understand, for me in that particular situation of either bugging out, or in the case of if you're never coming home, your equipment could look very, very similar. Pretty much the biggest difference is if you're never coming home versus just bugging out, what are the extra things that you want to take with you? Maybe you want to have more equipment with you in terms of personal defense. Maybe you want to have more food. Maybe you want to have more bushcraft gears in one setup over the other. So for me personally, you guys will be able to see the lists that I try to take if I'm just bugging out versus if I'm planning on never coming home. But the use cases are going to be up to you. And what do you want to actually pack? Probably a little bit heavier if you have no supplies en route, but it's going to be your choice on what kind of gear you want to take with you and what supplies and what provisions for personal protection and self-defense. So think about some of those things and try to think about the principle behind it, and does it make the most sense for you and your most likely and your most dangerous use case. Guys, this has been Bug Out Bags and looking at the gear for you and looking at through the lens of your 5 basic needs. Let me know what kind of gear you guys like to take, how you would change things up, and what you've had the most success with out in the field actually using it. Look forward to the comments.